The Know Your Gear podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Know Your Gear podcast, episode 357. I hope you guys had an amazing week. I know, I was gonna say I know I did. I don't know if I did. maybe I didn't. I don't know. It was a week. I got through it. I'm here, and that's the important part. Let's see. Normally I do the announcements and all this stuff, but I got to jump around on this super chat that I saw from Clan of House Cats. Said, I did my first jumbo stainless refret, got cut a bit. I have talked about this before. I only do stainless steel refrets now when I refret guitars. It's just because it's just easier for me. I don't do that many refrets anymore. And when I do, I bought a ton of Jescar stainless steel fret wire that I like, and I basically use it over and over again, and I like it. And I don't find it's hard to work with in any way. And the one thing I do notice is exactly what you said. It feels like it gets a little easy to cut yourself, nick yourself. It's just got a little bit more of a barb to it when it's rough. So there you go. Brian says, I think this is 358. It might be. Let's check. Let me double check. Oh, it is 358. So it duplicated last week's 357. So we'll update that later. This is episode 358. No one cares. No one's like, I don't care what episode it is. That's what I get from it. But I appreciate Brian keeping track of it. Okay, so let's do a couple things. There's no announcements this week. Nothing really going on that's that crazy or important. There's no merch thing or nothing like that to talk about. So I'm just going to get into topics and questions, if you will. And let me pull this up. And we do have a guitar of the week, so that's coming. And we do have some early comments and questions I want to hit. 251 wants to know, Phil, I love your soulful playing. What Tim Pierce lesson inspired that? So when I was going through the Tim Pierce lessons, I first went through it as I was looking for an epiphany. Like, okay, he's going to say something and it's going to all make sense to me. And that really didn't happen. And there was no click, oh, I get it all now. I feel like there's this weird tracking issue with the camera. Does anyone else see it too? It's weird how I'm moving. Just not to get sidetracked, but I don't know what that is and why the camera's having trouble with that every once in a while. But anyways, so those listening won't know what I'm talking about. Then what happened was I started picking out licks. There was a couple of licks he was doing, and I was like, okay, this is really great. And I once, when I was at Sweetwater, when I met Don Carr, I said, I take a lot of your licks because I like some of his phrasings. I like those. And so I was taking some Tim Pierce phrasings. And so then what I did is I just started letting the lessons play. And sometimes I would kind of go with one, and sometimes I just let it in the background. Somebody's saying it is weird that it's doing this weird track. Let's make sure it's not doing it anymore. I don't see it now. It might have stopped. I don't know what that was. So you got to love technical difficulty. There it is again. There's a weird thing. So we'll just have to deal with it. Just how it goes. Anyways, and so when I was letting him kind of play in the background, listening to him, he said something, and when he said it, it just kind of hit, which was more so not about technique in the idea of difficulty, but technique and feel. In other words, he was talking about in the lessons about the way something should feel more so than its technical ability. And I've said this for many years as a bass player primarily, and then I would do guitar obviously primarily on the YouTube channel. What would happen is I would I gotta scoot in a little bit. Okay. What would happen is I would first, when I started doing videos, I would play things that I thought people wanted to hear, like a cover song. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll play things, see if I could play a little tricky thing. And I really couldn't because I'm not that kind of player. And then I kind of dumbed it down to just chords. And it was always an experiment. People think when you're making your content that you have it figured out. You're figuring out your content as you go. You're just trying to figure out what it is that people like or don't like. And what it is that's appealing to them. So anyways, the thing that kind of resonated with me with Tim Pierce was kind of just play in the pocket, so to speak, play something that feels right. And that's what I started focusing that attention onto. So then when I would watch a lesson, I would look for exactly that, a phrasing, a feel, a technique, but not to copy his feel and sound, but to kind of put more of a polish on what I was already playing. And so that's what you're probably noticing in the last year or so in the videos. I see the comments a lot. They'll say, oh, your play's improved. It's weird how there's this line in the video. It's not so much that it's improved. I think it's just a little bit more polished. Technically, I'm not playing any better. In fact, technically, I'm not playing any different. It's more polished off. So, and, trying to own what it is I'm actually playing and not worrying about if it's technical or not. So if that gives you any insight. And I would say if you have the Tim Pierce course, you should do the same thing. Just let it play in the background. Let it permeate in the background. I was trying to go through them, but what I learned is you can just play them, and sometimes you're doing something and it literally catches your ear and your mind, and you just kind of pay attention to what he's talking about. So, okay, what else do we have? Okay, hold on a second. I thought I saw a great question. Hold on. I'm looking for... Okay, here it is. Bedden wants to know, hey, Phil, have you tried any Pensa guitars? I have not. I love their quality and the brand story. It would be great to see one on your channel. Cheers from Argentina. No, I haven't tried them or seen them or anything. Mostly, obviously... like the Valente guitar right there, or the Texas Toast guitar that's behind my head. Smaller builders like that. I could be wrong. I don't want to insult anybody. I don't know if Pensa is a small builder. I'm just assuming because it's, it's not, it doesn't, I haven't heard of it. So I'm thinking it's not like Fender or Gibson. Those guys usually, they reach out to us. That's usually how it works. I mean, you just can't, very rarely do I reach out to the smaller builders. It's because the small builders know when it's time to reach out. They maybe want to see getting their product in front of some people, or maybe they want to get highlighted, and I'm happy to do that for them. And we work the best agreement we can out to make it as easy for them as possible to do it. And so, yeah, but thank you for putting them on my radar. Let's see. Let's see. Hold on a second. Okay, so Michael Nielsen's like, doing guitar demos is super weird. Simple is the best to show gear, but there's a pressure to play something fancy. I get sucked in, rarely goes well. I don't think that's true at all, Michael. I think your playing is above par by far, and that's the showcase for you. I try to stay away from the YouTube talk so much on the podcast because it's a guitar channel thing, but sometimes the YouTube is part of this, obviously, right? It's no different than if I was a musician on stage talking about stage performance. I believe that if you want to be successful on this platform, you want to showcase the thing that is your best skill set. And in my case, I decided, and I leaned into the repair or the guitar knowledge part of it. Not to say I was above par anyone else, but I was like, that's where I have an asset, so I'll push on that. And that's why in my review video, it's going to be mostly diagnosing the guitar, mostly talking about the guitar, and then some demonstration as just to kind of put that frosting on that cake and call it a day. Michael, I think with you, you're in there with Sean Tubbs and Pete Thorne and those guys, RJ Rinquillo, where your level players, Tim Pierce, your knowledge is important. It is. And your recording experience, engineering experience and stuff, all that's important in your knowledge of the history of the industry. But you you would suffer if you didn't showcase or put forward that amazing talent of playing, because then that lets people see what the instrument or the amp or the pedal is capable of. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when you see a great player play a piece of equipment, it's nice to know what it can do. I've had this theory for many years when it comes to signature guitars. I believe signature guitars are one, you have people who just love the artist. Okay, of course, who doesn't fall into that? You know, they love the artist and they just wanted their guitar. Okay, you know, I'm a Nuno Bittencourt freak. There's my Nuno Bittencourt guitar. So that's where I land on that. However, I also believe that artists, if I don't lose my voice, hold on. I'm actually losing my voice. Excuse me. I apologize. I was looking for the mute button while I was trying not to cough. Artists also have another aspect which is cool, which is they can, when Eddie Van Halen plays a 5150, EVH 5150, or the PV 5150, and you hear his amazing tone, you know it's him. But what's great about that is, and this is what I love, if I grab the 5150 and I play through it and it sounds horrible, it's me. I know it's me because the amp didn't make Eddie sound worse, right? I've never thought that an amp would make an artist sound better, somebody with talent. I don't think gear makes people with talent sound better. I think gear can hinder talent. It's a subtractive thing. That's how you have to look at it. We talk about the inspiration of gear all the time because we're gear channels, and there's just something that we want to really believe, which is that gear makes us better and can inspire us to play. You know, one more guitar will inspire me to play. But the reality is, when you're really working and you're actually doing what you're supposed to do, which is play the instruments and play music and do this stuff, you realize that instruments don't make anything better. They just make things worse. They hold you back. They can do that. That's for sure. And so when you hear an artist with some amazing talent playing a piece of equipment and they sound fantastic, you know that product isn't going to hinder you. That's the thought process. That's what I believe. So I think that's why sometimes, like, if I grab and I'm just using Eddie because I'm, of course, you know, he's Eddie. But I mean, if I take a Wolfgang guitar and I plug it into a 5150 amp and I play something and I play my heart out and it sounds horrible, I'm assuming it's me. It's not the gear, because Eddie made it sound amazing. And I don't think, although I think he can make a piece of bad gear sound pretty good, I think gear hinders people, and so it doesn't hinder him. That's just kind of what I think. John wants to know, how did you like the Ernie Ballman JP15? I have a 7-string in Sierra Burst coming. The JP15, the neck was just a little too thin for me. The guitar was fantastic. Look, Music Man makes the best guitars. What I learned with the JP series of instruments is that the painted necks are just a little bit thicker. Just a little bit. And that makes a huge difference to me, as that neck's just a little too thin for me. So I wanted the neck a little thicker. So that's why I switched to a JP13, I believe, is what I have now. And that's the only reason I did it, is just get the neck a little thicker. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't say that, you know, you can't sometimes get past, you know, a piece of gear you love. So if you really love an instrument, if you love a guitar, like I have guitars that I just love on every level. If you love them, then it won't matter if there is a guitar that is better. And in this case, as much as I think the 7-string JP is better and the Strandberg 7-string is better, I always play my RG7620 that is right there, that I bought for $350. If I could only have one 7-string, that would be it. As soon as I point at it, it goes out of focus. And it is absolutely an amazing instrument on every level, and I just love it. And it's the neck is just a little thick, but not too thick. It kind of works out great. But you're gonna love that guitar because it's fantastic. So there you go. And I would say there you go. Hold on, I'm just looking at comments. Oh, I get sometimes too sidetracked looking at the comments. Hold on. There was one thing I was going to do real quick. Oh, you know what it was? I wanted to see. Can I? There it is. Okay. So what I did, just now in the settings, somebody was saying there's a lot of ads. I did a pre-loaded live show, so I'm reset it. So hopefully the ads will stop for the live show. We'll see. So let me know, but let me know in a few minutes because I'm sure it takes time to update it. Okay. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. As I jump around and look. Okay, we have Andrew says, "Hey Phil, sorry for the off topic. Are you still happy with your Pedigo bikes?" That's funny. With spring here, I'm looking for a great e-bike. So a couple years ago, it feels like 2 years ago, but it might have been a year ago or so, my wife and I bought electric bikes. And I think I told you guys this story. We went to a bike shop, and I hope you guys don't mind a little bike shop story. We went to a bike shop, and we went to a bunch of bike shops looking for some recreational fun bicycles that were e-bikes because we wanted to try them. And it was very difficult to buy them. Difficult not only for the price, but difficult because the information was very confusing. And we ended up buying some bikes that we didn't like. They were just a little too streamlined street bike for us. You know, we wanted more something like a cruising bike. So then we ended up getting the cruising bikes, which were the Pedigos. So Pedigo is a brand of bikes. You can look them up. They're rather expensive. So if you're going to Google search what I'm talking about right now, be prepared to get a little shocked. Now, some of you guys that really like high-end bikes aren't going to really get shocked at this, but you know, these are like, I think they're like $3,000 a piece kind of thing, $2,500 to $3,500 a piece. Very expensive. And we absolutely love them. So we got them, and we like it because we use the pedal assist, and it's nice when you're going up hills or when the wind's blowing, you know, you just kind of just do your thing in your pedal. And so we've been using them quite often. However, as strange as it's going to sound, we like them so much that we ended up just started hiking more. I know it sounds weird, but we were like biking all the time, and then we're like, that kind of got, and I'll just say more so me, kind of got me into a shape where I wanted to, like, we could hike a little better, you know, hike a little bit more. And so we started hiking more. And so here's where it's at, and it's just me, it has to do with mostly me. But now I hike more than I use the electric bikes, and I have to tell you, I would personally rather ride the bikes. They're so much fun. They are absolutely a joy to ride around. However, when I look at my calorie burn and all that stuff, I like the hiking more. I burn so much more. We do about a 5 to 6. Well, we average about a 4 to 6 mile hike. Last month, I think Sean was saying we did 121 miles. Is what we did last month. And so it's tough because you ride the bikes and it's pedal assist, but it's still you're pedaling, but it's a pedal assist. And you end the bike run, and you ride bikes for we'll ride for 2, 3, 4 hours on, right? Easy. You come back and you're like, oh, 300 calories. And you're like, cool. And then I go for a 2-hour hike or a walk, an extreme walk, a fast-paced walk, and it's like 1,000 calories. And so I just feel like I'm getting more from the walking than I am from the biking. But so it's also easy now because the temperature here has been really cold. So it's also nice to walk. As it warms up here in Arizona, we already plan to go back to biking when it's 90 degrees because, at least you'll have some breeze from the bikes and stuff. But and then Dewey says, what Pedigo bike did you get? I don't know. Let me look. We're going to become a Pedigo biking channel. Okay, let's see if they sell my bike still. I assume they do. E-bikes. Oh yeah, this looks like it right here. Comfort Cruiser. See the bike. I'm pretty sure that's it. I'm going to share the pictures. It's so funny. Okay, really? All right. Let me share my screen. Here it is. This is it. It's the Comfort Cruiser electric bike. I liked it because I get to sit on a blanket while Shauna wears a sun hat. And no, I'm just kidding. I like it because I sit upright on the bike and not forward. And it's because I'm not trying to go for speed. We're trying to go for distance. The whole point of the electric bikes was we thought it would be really fun to go far. And this is I'm going to get so much crap for this. I know you guys. You just feel free. Hammer the comments. The only thing that sucks about e-bikes is that you ride so long, your ass just hurts so bad. I've tried different seats. I've tried everything. When you're riding 3 hours, 4 hours on a bike, it's brutal. In fact, so we love them so much that we would ride even longer, but it's just too brutal. After a while, you're like, God, I can't take it anymore. That's the Comfort bike. I was hoping it was it says see the bike, and then it's just a picture of these people. Do you scroll? Nothing, huh? Oh, here it is. More pictures of people. Here, let me share. This is the bike. So that's ours looks a little different than this, so they might have updated or changed it, but that's essentially the bike right there. So it looks just like that. Very exciting. Not really. And there was another reason why we did that. We didn't want any super fancy looking bikes as well, because again, we just want to keep it all low key. So, all right. Okay. Somebody says butt hurt. So, okay. Okay, I don't know. Now I see we got so far off topics that now we're not going to be able to get back on topic. Let me figure out where we're at here. Let me get back to the screen I need to get to. Here we go. Update that. Much better. Okay. We have Aaron Short Music. What's up, Aaron? Aaron Short's music, Short Music, no S. Please check out his channel. He's got a great channel, especially if you want to learn a lot about acoustic. He does cover other things, but specializes, at least I feel he specializes in acoustic. He's kind of my go-to for acoustic video stuff. He says, Phil, what are your thoughts on acoustic intonation? I like them to be intonated. He says, I have a guitar where the D string is flat at the 12th fret by 15 cents. Would a plec help? I don't think so, Aaron. Here's why. So, first of all, it's funny that you mentioned 15 cents. It's a magic number that you mentioned. I believe I read a long time ago that the human ear can only detect within 15 cents of a pitch. Did I say 15? I meant 14. I read your. See, that's why I can't read and talk at the same time. I read the human ear can only detect about 14 cents in difference, and that most tuners now are accurate within like 2 cents. That's why it's kind of funny, because some of the really, especially like the Peterson strobe tuners stuff, but a lot of these nicer tuners now, they're so accurate that they're more accurate than what we can actually hear in most cases. But I understand what you're saying about it being 15 cents out on the D string. Do the plec, so here's what the plec would not fix that. And here's why I don't believe the plec would fix that. Because the plec, that minor of it, and even though that's a big deal, especially in acoustic, because those chords can get sour, especially on acoustic. The thought is that the more we crown that fret, the more we round it, the more precise the string that touches the tip of the fret would be more accurate. The distance would be accurate to the bridge, right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about now. So imagine what you're saying. You're basically saying if we rounded that fret, like the plec machine leveled the frets and then rounded them over, and it did it so well that minor difference, in fact, how it changed the end of the string from going from this part of to the fret to this part, that little distance right there, that's what he's talking about. I hope this is kind of making sense to people, is going to adjust out that 15 cents, is not very likely. It is possible, because anything is possible, but here's my concern with this question. You're talking about like $250 to $350 to adjust out that 15 cents of whatever it was. I don't know if you said it was flat or sharp by 15 cents. Let me go back to it. I don't think you mentioned. I don't think you did. Oh, you did. It was flat. Okay. I would imagine, like if you gave that problem to me as a tech, I would focus more on the saddle. The saddle would be where I can make the biggest difference with the least amount of effort. And so I would reshape that saddle. And then you have to understand, when you are talking in the way you're talking with acoustics, this is why you really want to, Jerry says, I'm sorry, 15 cents is insanely out of tune. Again, it can be. Intonation is a very strange thing, okay? Leland says he can hear within 3 cents. Well, again, I'm just telling you what I read. It was a Peterson Strobe article I read once. It was really interesting. But the point to this is that I would say the saddle is the massive adjustment point. That's what I would focus on, and having a new saddle carved if you don't know how to do it, if it's not something you do. But that's where I would put it. It would be, one, it would be a lot less expensive. Two, which is more important is they can do that. You know, you cut you a new saddle, and you still have the original one too, so you can put it in and you'll be able to compare and actually hear it change. But that's what I would focus on more so than frets. Frets can affect intonation, but it is so minor. It's not going to make enough. It's not going to move that difference enough. So Jeremy says, shim the saddle a little bit. You could shim it up because that does that, but I still don't think that would either create enough of a difference. But again, all we're doing is kind of giving we're giving a guess of what I would do to attack the problem. If you gave the problem to me, I would put all my focus on making sure the saddle was cut and set up correctly. That's where I would focus on that guitar. And ironically, it's going to be not inexpensive, but the least expensive thing to do, and it's going to make the biggest difference. Okay. Chris wants to know what the dollar euros conversion for tuning is. So I always talk, you know, it's funny, one thing about everybody's input about intonation, and I know I have this, and I always want to just be always upfront and clear with why I say and think the way I do. After you set up a few thousand guitars, you have to understand that although I think a lot of you are amazing, because I'm sure you are, I would say, and I have had many discussions with everybody from Paul Reed Smith to, you know, luthiers that are small builders, to guitar techs that have been doing it for 40 years, to guitar techs who have been doing it for 10 years. And it always seems to, the stories always seem to revolve around the fact that most of the people that talk about intonation, a lot of players can't even hear it, intonation being out. It's one of those things. It's one of those things. So the reason why I say that is because when everybody says, I can hear it, I'm sure you can, but you have to understand that most players don't hear as well as you probably think they do. And so intonation is, it's the problem with intonation is that when a player can hear intonation out, it is a nails on a chalkboard thing. You can really tell when they really hear it out and when they're guessing it's out. And so that's why I said I always have to be general, because one of the things I worry about sometimes is some players can play with a guitar unproperly intonated and sound fantastic, as strange as that say. I always point this out. The Frankenstein guitar, the Eddie Van Halen Frankenstein guitar, is not intonated correctly. It is not, and it still is not intonated correctly. It was played on those albums with improper intonation that it still has. And interviewing guitar players, a lot of guitar players from the 80s even will tell you that they play guitars on albums and didn't. There's a famous story George Lynch told me, famous to me, so I don't know if it's famous to you guys. He said that when he was recording a lot of the Dokken albums, he didn't use a tuner at all, and it made it a nightmare for retracking because he'd have to go back to track, and he was just tuning by ear, and it wasn't even specifically in specific 440 tuning. It was slightly out, and he'd have to kind of listen to the album and kind of readjust it. And he said it's one of his biggest regrets is not using like an actual tuner and tuning everything to a standard 440 tuning on those albums, because it was just a nightmare to go back to it. And the takeaway on that is exactly what I've been saying, is that a lot of players just play and they kind of feel it, the intonation, and they kind of feel the tone, and they play it. Andre Flood and I did a bonus podcast. It'll be out soon. And Andre said this amazing thing where he was talking about he uses a tremolo because he always feels everything's out of intonation. And he uses the tremolo kind of blended into intonation and into tune, so to speak. And he feels everything's like kind of out of tune, and then he blends it into tune. So I like these kind of talks. I like they're really cool. But it's funny. I have to be weary always, because I've had so many conversations with so many guitar players, and some really understand what is out and they hear it, and some just say it's out because, again, they're reading it off a tuner and they don't really understand. And I learned this the hard way. I learned from a player whose ear was so amazing that he used to have me set up his guitars, which made me absolutely nuts, but I did it anyways, and I'm proud I did it. He would make me intone his guitars slightly out because he had figured out with what his pressure he pushes down where the intonation comes back in from his playing. It was really crazy, and he was right. So it's your interesting talk, but I always caution everybody to be weary, because you don't want to be miserable if you're not miserable now. Aaron says, hey, I tried to adjust the saddle, but I couldn't get it. Sent the guitar to Sweetwater for evaluation. I'll make some kind of video about this when I get it back. There's not much info on the on AC intonation. So the adjustment of the saddle, that is, like I said, that's the first thing you did, which was the first thing I would do. So one of two things can happen. Either A, then yes, maybe the frets do need to be dressed and rounded over, or B, they might have a different adjustment. This happened to me both ways. I've talked about this in the past as a guitar tech. I've had it happen both ways, where I did a setup on a guitar and somebody's like, it's wrong, and I'm like, I did it again, and they go, it's wrong, and they take it to another tech and they go, he had it for 5 seconds and now it's right. And I've had it the opposite way, where a tech worked on a guitar for hours and hours, wrong, brought it to me, and I put it back, or I put it into the thing and it was right. It is not every situation is super easy, and sometimes you might they might see something and do an adjustment on that saddle and still be right, or they might decide that you are right and your adjustment was correct, and then do the frets. But my again, not seeing it, not knowing, not dealing with it, my gut says stick with the bridge until you absolutely know it's not that, because that is the biggest culprit of that. So Gary Davlin says, guitars and a lot of demos have bad intonation, drives me nuts. It is Gary perfectly said, when it's out, it will drive you crazy. That's how I can kind of tell who can hear it and who can't, because when people mention it being out, like it's out, I find that they have a theory or they think it's out. But people, what I've learned is players who can really hear, like perfect pitch even, it is more than just they're telling you it's out. It's literally grating on them. You can see they're having an emotional reaction to it. They don't like it. Shauna reminded me of this recently. Somebody, the people always ask, like, you had a music store. What was the song you hated to hear all the time? Were you sick of Metallica? Were you sick of, Stairway to Heaven? And the reality was, there was no song that I ever bugged me that anyone played ever. And same with Shauna and same with Ralph. We all agreed. The thing that would drive me bonkers, and Shauna as well too, and Ralph as well, was people who'd pick up guitars out of tune and play them. And one of my favorite memories was a person who picked up a guitar, was playing the guitar out of tune, just playing it. Like they're just like, not like strumming on it and not doing anything. They were like playing songs, but the songs are all out of tune. And I was like, oh, I can't take it anymore. And then I walked up and I said, hey, here's a clip-on tuner. If you want, we'll tune up the guitar, but if you want to tune it, and they go, oh, no, it's fine. And I go, and I just remember like glass shattering in my brain, like, I can't take this anymore. But we just let him play. So, out of tune guitars were the worst thing. And people would just play them out of tune all the time. And to this day, I don't know, do they know they're out of tune or they don't care? or do they not know they're out of tune? It was crazy. So, all right. Let's see. Perfect pitch. Leland says, perfect pitch can be a curse. Relative pitch is a gift. I remember one day, Shauna, she goes, I wonder who has perfect pitch. So she started asking people, because we're in, the lesson academy. And she had all of our teachers take a test on perfect pitch. And only one teacher had perfect pitch. His name's Mario, and he was a bass teacher. And he had literally perfect pitch. And he didn't know. Isn't that funny? He didn't know it. He took the test. In fact, she's like, because she got all the test results from all the teachers, and then she gave him their, the results back, and she's like, Mario have perfect pitch, and he's like, I didn't know, and didn't care. But it was he had absolute perfect pitch. So, all right. Let's see. Let's go back to more topics, questions as we jump around. We have. The next one is from Glide 7575. Best way to fix a Fender stripped dual flex truss rod. Well, if it's stripped out at the top, basically there is a tool that you can get from StewMac. It'll make life easy. You don't have to use it, but it's really great. And you can just take the end of the truss rod off and replace it with a new one. That's without looking at it and seeing it. If you don't have access to StewMac stuff, you just basically have to take the truss rod end off and replace it. The word I love to hear is stripped. Truss rod is stripped. Because that means it's not broken, right? You can break the end off. The other thing you can do if you don't want to do that is you can buy these tapered Allen wrenches that they sell that kind of come like to a point, and you use them. I use them all the time. They're really great. And what happens is if it's kind of stripped out, eventually they kind of bite in, and then you can turn the truss rod. So that will work as well. But there is a truss rod in removing tool that I have that I would recommend that works really great. Andrew, and here's why I say that. I'm assuming you don't know how to do it already. So the tool would be the catalyst, the thing that you need, right? If you don't have that's what's great about some tools. So some tools involve skill, and you need to kind of learn to use them. And some tools are made to be almost dummy proof, and that's sometimes what's great. This is one of those tools where it's made to kind of basically, you buy it as a guitar player, not as a luthier, and go ahead and fix it. So I would definitely check on their website and then watch the tutorial video on that as well. So, and then if it looks scary to you, then take it to somebody and have it done. And I would use a Fender certified warranty sender for it. And the reason I say that is not because they're going to cover it, which they might, depends on how old the Fender is and what it is. Most likely they're not going to do it though. But usually you think of the warranty center as someone who's done that exact guitar a couple times. And so they're going to look at it as oh yeah, I've seen this. I can do it real quick. Or, man, this is the problem. Okay, so Andrew says, hey, I'm sorry. Oh, I already did his off-topic. Dan says, last night I was finally able to become a patron. TGS crew, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Glad I can finally support and give back for all the information and help you given. Man, thank you so much for that. I know, I talk about the patrons and the channel members supporting the podcast and stuff, but it was funny. I saw a bunch of new patrons lately, and as you can tell from the video content I've been putting out recently and the massive amounts of it, I've been a little extra busy. And so I haven't been able to introduce myself as much as when I go in there, but I've been posting on Patreon extra stuff. And I really got to tell you, and I always say this I understand if everyone can't sponsor, and pay, Patreon or become channel members and stuff. I totally, like I said, it's an elective thing. So I just want to thank you that can do it, because it really does help with so many things. Okay. And here's why I say that. It is I talk about this privately all the time, and maybe I should talk about it a little bit more publicly. The main thing that Patreon does for this channel is it allows me to make decisions that I feel are more ethical and more congruent with who I am as a person. And what I mean by that is, look, it's not like I'm like, oh, I got a family to feed, and therefore, I don't have to do YouTube to feed my family. I can do other things. But YouTube does tend to take a big chunk of time, and I have been successful at it. And so I want to continue to do it. I enjoy it. You guys seem to enjoy it, and I want to keep doing it, and I want to keep growing it. But I need to do it the way I feel is important to me. And, this question came in his email. I'm tying it in because it's just, I feel like sometimes this is where I suck. It's kind of like I don't self-promote enough. Maybe I do. I don't know. But I got this email question and I wanted to talk about it. It says, "Hey, Phil, have you tried Temu for guitar stuff?" Temu has reached out to us. And if you don't know who Temu is, good, I'm not going to tell you. But if you do know who Temu is, Temu has reached out to us, and it's going to be a huge payout, like $5,000-$10,000 at least. At least. In fact, 5 is definitely and 10 is probable for a payout to do a video. I am not doing the Temu video. I don't have any intense negative feelings towards Temu. I just don't have any positive feelings towards Temu. And the first discussion that came up about Temu was with Shauna, because Shauna's the one who handles all the advertisers and stuff, was about getting another phone to put the Temu app, because there might be issues where, there was security concerns with Temu. And so long story short, I'm not doing Temu, Temu, whatever I think they call it Temu now. Themselves now call it, but everybody was calling it Temu. And it's when you see that kind of money, that's not. So when I talk about that money that I just said, that's not normal YouTuber money for me. That's not like what companies pay. That's not even close, right? That's way, way higher. And so I just couldn't do it. And that decision, I could say, oh yeah, it's like, I don't care about money, I'm good. But the reality is I have this Patreon sponsorship coming from you guys. And when I sit there and I kind of analyze where I'm at, I go, all right, I don't need to do that. I don't have to make that decision. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying I don't want to do it, and I'm not doing it because I don't want to use their app and I don't want to use their product. It's bad enough I already talk about Amazon all the time, and that already pushes it for me. But I use Amazon, unfortunately. I use Amazon the same way I use Walmart, against my own better judgment, but I do it. But I'm not going that far that way. And that's just it. Like I said, I just want to, and I want to thank you for that, because when that came up this week as a discussion, it was like, it felt good to say no, but it felt really good to know that it doesn't mean I'm actually out anything. I'm actually sponsored by you guys too. And that lets me think like this is the better for the community kind of idea. So, and that lends into it. So there you go. That helps. And then a couple of you now are talking about other YouTubers and how they did. I have to first, let me explain this, because again, this podcast is about information. So let me give you the information. Other channels might have done Temu. You understand they might not have been offered anything close to that. They might have been offered just a couple free things. They might have offered a couple $100. Different channels, not the subscriber counts, but just your grading and how you're graded as a channel. As you guys know, I have a second channel. So just to give you a reference of this, I'm not guessing. I have a second channel, and last month, my second channel did 800,000 views, and my main channel did 1 million views, which is about what my channel does. And so if you were doing the math on that, I'm sure you would think that my second channel made 80% of what my main channel did. And I'm here to tell you that it didn't even do 25%. Oh, no, about 25%. It did about 25% of what my main channel does, because they are not graded the same. They're not the same level of channels. So you understand there's different value points. And you have to understand other channels have a luxury, which is some channels can do content because it's fun or they're interested in it. For me, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. I already told you I tried when I did the Amazon guitar recently, the RJ guitar, that was not a paid sponsored video, because I wanted to hit it as hard as I could, because I kind of had, I wanted to be able to say, whatever I wanted and not worry about them getting upset. So that, like I said, I just want to tell you, it's a luxury that I'm afforded from you guys, and to me, to make my personal decisions. And other channels will make their own personal decisions, but it's not an indictment of those channels, by the way. I liked a lot of the channels that did Temu videos. Obviously, that's where I did some more research about what I was thinking about doing. But for me, I don't use the app, so I couldn't do the video. You see what I'm saying? That's the important part. It's not something I would use ever. It's just for me personally. So, there you go. What else? And since, because this is how the drama starts. They're like, somebody's like, Phil says Temu sucks and other YouTubers do it. Let me just tell you what I stepped in this week. So thank you guys first for, we brought Sharpen My Axe back. That was because Shauna was watching the podcast, and some of you guys brought up Sharpen My Axe, and I explained to you why I don't want to do it anymore and how it was costing us money, and it doesn't really net any positive result to me personally. Not so much financially, but personally, because it's like 3-4 days of work and it doesn't yet yield very many views. And you guys were basically explaining why you liked it and the value it brought to you. Shauna then brought the case to me and said, hey, these people said these things. I don't know if you caught it because you were talking while they were typing this stuff. And I want to bring it back. And so we brought it back this week. I want to thank you guys so much. The comments were some of the most positive comments I've ever seen on any video I've ever done. And the likes to view ratio is one of the highest likes to view ratios I've seen in recent times. And that was amazing too. However, here was the mistake, and I want to talk about it. We negotiated a deal with TrueFire to sponsor the video. TrueFire, and this is why I'm just telling you this, because I want it up front out there. This week we had some issues, and so TrueFire is no longer on that video. And the issue was when TrueFire asked me to do the video, they didn't give me any instructions on how to promote it or what to do with it. They gave me a sample course, which I took, and I watched a bunch of other YouTube channels do TrueFire. And one of them was Keith from 5-Watt World, and he recommended the Bonamassa course. So I purchased and I did the Bonamassa course, and to get an insight on that, just like when I did Skillshare, right? Just try to get some insight on it. I really like promoting a lesson program over a product. It's just really, it feels better, right? Like kind of like instead of you buying stuff that could be garbage, I'd rather promote something that will better your lives. So anyways, they didn't give me any footage. So what happened was I copied some footage, including Keith's from 5-Watt World's footage. What I mean by logos, I copied the logos and stuff. And I made the integration, which is what they call the thing where you put the little commercial in there. And we sent that to TrueFire. TrueFire said it looked great. Go ahead and put it out. And what happened was it was not great because it was Keith from 5-Watt Worlds. He created that from scratch, which makes sense because that would probably make sense why I didn't have what I needed, any footage from TrueFire. So we removed it to respect Keith from 5-Watt Worlds footage, right? Because that's his stuff. He worked on it. He put his hard work and money into doing that. And obviously, we're not going to be sponsored by TrueFire on this. But that is because obviously, the mistake was first we made the mistake by using that footage, and then TrueFire made a mistake by when we sent it to them for approval to say, hey, is this what it's supposed to look like? They said yes. So obviously, I feel like we were both to blame. The reason I tell you that is that, again, this ties into patrons. Thank you guys so much, because otherwise, I just worked for 3 days, and that video, although you guys loved it, did not produce. Probably it's going to make me about $35. So I didn't make just $35 because I have you guys, and I want to thank you for that. And also apologize to Keith at 5-Watt World for that, because obviously he puts a lot of work into what he does. And I really, like I said, I really liked his TrueFire ads the most, which makes sense now that's why I liked his the most, because he was making his from scratch. So so there you go. So that's great. I should probably, if you guys have it, can somebody put Keith from 5-Watt World's TrueFire link for the 30% off for TrueFire? And in fact, I'll put it on that video as well, so you guys can use it. I believe, does somebody know it? If somebody knows it, put it in now, and when I timestamp this, I will put it in the index what Keith from 5 Watt World's actual link is, so he can get credit for that. And like I said, but this is what I talk about when I talk about YouTube. It's not just to tell you how great, hey, I got 400,000 subscribers, my channel is amazing. This is the things that you deal with. I tell you guys all the time, we're all learning as we go. What I was trying to do and what Sean was trying to do is to find more integration type product videos to where we could do more Sharpen My Axes. The good news is we're still doing Sharpen My Axe. Nothing has deterred that. We're doing more of the videos, and basically, if we find sponsors that work great, we'll do it. And if they don't, we don't. We have you guys. So I think that makes sense. So let's see. Anything else? What's funny? Hold on. I just want to do this. Drew says, love Keith, but cut Phil some slack. It's funny. He did. So, Keith was very, very professional. As you can imagine, if you know 5 Watt World, his channel is professional, okay? And he was very professional, and I really appreciate that his first thought was, I don't know if Phil knows that this is my footage, or not knows, but knows this wasn't TrueFire footage. And he's absolutely right. Since TrueFile did not send me a file, I captured the first file I saw, because I was like, oh, this is easy, right? Just capture a file. Another file means images. Capture these images. And I go, that's probably what it's supposed to look like, and do it. So again, he was correct. And then, and I sent it, again, I just one more time, just because if I'm out myself, I want to out everybody too. I did send it to TrueFire and said, is this what it is supposed to look like? Is this what you want? And they were like, yeah, it looks great. I'm like, okay, cool. We'll put it out. And so it happens. It's important. But the important part is, the reason why I say it's important, one, that he was very professional and he did take the high road when discussing me in this. Also, to Keith's attribute, is it is his work. He created it. We all are creators on here, and it kind of is deflating when somebody takes your work. So to me, I didn't see it as his work. I saw it as an advertisement, like a screenshot of the ad. So that's where the confusion is. Like I wouldn't take anybody's actual work, but if I knew it was their work more so than just it was a screenshot of the ad. So there you go. So, and that's the learning lesson now. So now we've talked about it, we've discussed it, and going forward, we'll only work with the companies that we feel like we can work within the parameters of what they ask, and not the vagueness. Because it is tricky, man. I like to point out, as much as somebody will say, hey man, have you been on YouTube for like 7-8 years? I am still not, unfortunately, a camera person, an editing person, a social media mogul. I am a guitar nut who likes to make content, and I have worked hard to make my content a little better looking. I've worked hard to make it a little bit more professional. I've worked hard to do all this stuff, but I'm still, I'm not. I probably should be spending hours and hours looking up camera stuff, but that stuff disinterests me so much that I just want to make guitar stuff. All right. Let's see. What else do we got to talk about? Let's go on to guitar stuffs again. Let's go back to guitar stuff. And by the way, like the pedagogue, feel free to razz me about any of those mistakes I recently made too. So, okay. We have... we have a lot of questions that piled up and I didn't pay attention. I apologize. Okay. Grawler says, hey Phil, any pointers on how to introduce, launch, or sell a new guitar design brand into the market? Goal, all-in-one guitar for serial giggers. $1,000 is I'd consider made in USA, made in Japan, made in... So you want to... Well, obviously, yeah, that's something I do know how to do. So any pointers on how to introduce and launch and sell a guitar design? Yes, I have all that information. I've done now about a half a dozen of them, some associated with me and most of them not associated with me in any way, obviously. And I'm kind of redoing it right now with another company, and I want to say their relaunch as so to speak is what's coming. So this is what I would say, Jay. I could give you a couple pointers. I could also tell you that the smartest thing you can do if you don't know how to do it is learn, invest the time into learning it, like how I did and how other people have. Or you can hire a consultant. I do consulting all the time to that degree. It's not something I charge a whole lot of money for, but I mean, I do got to get compensated for some time. But more importantly on this, there are so many things that you need to make sure before I would say, yes, this is what you do to launch your brand. There are so many things that you need to think and get done before. The one thing I would tell you about launching a product or a brand that you need to consider is everything else needs to be done and perfect before that happens. So you do not want to release a guitar and then immediately announce that you've changed it. No changes, okay? So you have to be ready. I know this sounds silly, but this is the important part. This is the step that probably most people are going to miss. Your LLC needs to be put in place. Your trademarking needs to be put in place. There used to be a time where you could get away doing stuff without doing proper, legal documentation because, you'd make a thing in your garage and then you'd sell it at the local swap meet and a couple of people buy your things. You have to understand now that you're going to make a product and put it on the internet, and the internet is the world. Okay, that's the important part. The community that's sitting here before you is a community of the world. It's Argentina, it's USA, it's Europe, it's Asia, it's everywhere. It's Australia, it's everywhere. And so you have to understand that once you do this, you are public, and in the public's eye, your mistakes are going to be like I just talked about one of my big mistakes. And you're going to have to either decide if you're going to want to be public about your mistakes or you're going to try to avoid them. Avoiding them is probably the best thing to do. But more importantly, you want to make sure that you don't want to start with like a perfect example is you don't want to go, hey, my new guitar brand is called Kiesel. And then in your first 500 views of your first video, it's Kiesel saying, yeah, no, it's not. Right? So you want to make sure everything is done beforehand. And that includes, like I said, all your design work, all your trademarking, all your legal stuff. Again, if you're trying to go internet, if you're trying to go social media, if you're going to do it from your bootstraps at home and sell one-to-one with people and maybe put it on your local Facebook, maybe you can get away with just doing it the old way. But the new way definitely everything has to be done right. And then you have to also be available, or not available. You also have to be aware of the fact that your product could do very well, and you need to be prepared for that. You have to prepare for success and you have to prepare for the failure and then what's your next step. And that's like a game of chess. You have to know exactly what's going to happen once that happens. So when you release your product, if it does really well, you want to know what's next. If your product doesn't do really well, you need to know what's next. All of those things are going to be the most important thing. And so here's what's funny. If you were to pay me to talk to me on the phone and have like I said, like a consulting thing, this is what would suck is because you would pay me basically to tell you that I don't want to talk to you about the social media part until you've proven to me all of those things are in place and some more. And then I would go, okay, let's go ahead and get social media out there. Let's get it out there. This is what's great about me. Sorry. What I mean, nothing's really great about me, but what's great about this is I've stepped in this crap so many times that I'm not telling you my theories, and I'm not telling you that I figured it out. I'm telling you what every mistake I've made, and this is why you need to be prepared that these have to be avoided. I've done all these mistakes publicly, and they're all bad, and I'm better for it now, but I'm also smart enough to tell you how to avoid them. Those are all the things I would do if you're going to start a new brand of guitars. And then after you've done everything that we just discussed, then you have to do the financial due diligence, which is to figure out if it's even feasible to make any money doing what you're doing. It is very hard to make money in this industry. I mean, I'm sure a lot of industries are hard to make money, but this industry is one of the ones that's tough. The people who succeed, this is what I kind of feel like this is what needs to be said. The people that you revere as successful in this industry have made millions of dollars, not tens of millions of dollars, millions. I won't name them because I don't think that's classy, but because I'm trying to give you to tell you how you respect them. But basically, these people, it doesn't matter who you're thinking of. I already know you're probably thinking of 10 people. I'm already kind of thinking of too. When you think of 10 people, I don't mean companies. I'm not talking about like Fender Guitar Corporation, FMIC. I'm talking about people. When you think of successful people in this industry, and you think, wow, they're doing great. You could be wrong, but you could be right. But most likely, they are making millions of dollars if they're lucky. Some of them not. Some of them hundreds of thousands. Not very many to few of them are making tens of millions of dollars. And I know some of you are like, well, I'd be happy with millions. Well, who wouldn't? But it's the same. It was kind of hit to me as a very leveling comment. It's the same amount of sweat, equity, and tears and time to make a guitar company is to make a sock company. You see what I'm saying? And make, a company that makes $1 billion. In other words, companies, think about this. There are companies that started 20 years ago that are now $1 billion companies, and there are companies in this industry started 20 years ago, and now they're doing 1.8 million a year. And I bet you if you were to interview both those people, the billionaire and the person with $1 million, maybe they're both happy. That's the important part. But financially, I bet you they don't look at it like they put in less or more work. It's a lot of work to do this industry, and it doesn't have a huge payout. And that's the winners. And that's why I'm trying to tell you that. I'm not saying you wouldn't be happy if you got millions. I'm sure you'd be ecstatic. But those are the winners. So you understand when we say the losers, it's like winners make a couple $100,000 or $1 million or a couple million. Then the next winners are lucky to make a living, And then underneath that is a lot of people. It's all in the middle. Like I would tell people, everybody always thinks business, and especially in this industry, is failure and success. You either go out of business or you make $1 million. And I'm here to tell you that a lot of this industry, especially the ones I know and have interviewed for a long time, are just limping through it. And a lot of them are happy. So, they're just happy to exist and do the thing they love. But they're not doing bad enough to physically go out of business, but they're not doing good enough to actually, do the next strategy or do the next level. So, so that's the thing. And that's not even talking about all the people who are probably going to come out of the woodwork and sue you because you did. I laugh because somebody just mentioned, the big company that likes to sue people. Man, I don't know anybody in this industry hasn't got served a letter or hasn't served a letter. I mean, I don't think I have. Maybe one or two. So, I don't know. So it happens. Okay, Jay says, happy Friday. Phil, how do I convert a direct mount pickup, Kiesel lithium, to be mounted to a pickup ring? Oh, that's a super easy thing. Basically, you just you put the pickup ring. You center it up. The pickup ring is going to center up with the lines of that route, which is great. And you install the pickup ring. I mean, I've done it a ton of times. Essentially, you just center up the pickup ring. You're going to drill the holes. So, you want to make sure you measure twice, cut once. Make sure your pickup ring is exactly where you want it. You've put the pickup in there. You've kind of made sure it's seating correctly. You want to make sure that it can lower and raise without any issues. That your pickup screws are not too long. Once you've done that, then you're ready. You use the pickup frame. I've just used the actual pickup frame, taped it down. Definitely don't want it to move. And once I know I'm ready and I've measured 2 or 3 times and everything looks good, I take my drill and I drill the 4 little pilot holes for the screws. I install the pickup ring, and then I remove the pickup ring, undo the screws, take the pickup ring out, then install the pickup in the pickup ring and put it in if you want to do it that way. So yeah, it's not that hard. It's the hard way is the question that goes the other way. How do you take a mounted one to a pickup ring and put a direct mount? That's a little harder because you have those holes to fill and then try to blend out, and that sometimes needs some finish work. But what you're trying to do is a little bit on the easier side. Grumpy My Guitar says, huge thanks for the Sharpen My Axe video. Thank you, man. This week I did the same repair on an Epiphone about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, it was really great. Dave, I mentioned in the video that the viewer is named Dave. What I didn't mention, because it was, a video and now I can talk about it in the long term. Dave is actually a long-time customer of my store. He took lessons at our lesson academy for many years. I had done many repairs for him in the past. I've sold him many of his guitars. He is probably one of the biggest pickup guru geeks that I know. He's super into guitar pickups on a level that even I, can't kind of hold up to. He's very excited about pickups. In fact, I don't want to say he got me into pickups, but he was definitely like, I was into pickups, and then he would talk about pickups, and the conversations always go towards pickups. And what was great was we were talking about, like, let's do the Sharpen My Axe. We have another Sharpen My Axe coming, should be this month. I'm hoping on the 19th. And we were working this out, and that one just kind of worked out. And I thought, and Sharpen My Axe, in my opinion, obviously is about taking, a guitar and making it a little better, but it's about things you can do. Sharpen My Axe, the theory of the series, was things that you could do as a project at home for either your first or your next project and not have to take it to a repair person. So that's why I don't try to make them too over the top. I don't want to be like, I don't want to make it to where something like, yeah, you really need to do 5 or 6 of these before your first one. This is one of those, like, yeah, if you ever thought about gluing a neck, this would be a perfect first time glue repair for a neck. A lifted fretboard like that is like the perfect guitar to do that, because the neck is structurally sound, so you don't have to worry about it re-breaking or anything. The fretboard, once you glue it down, the odds of it cracking again is just so not likely. It's not likely. So it was really cool. So it was really great to do it. And he didn't know that I was making the video, because that guitar came as a favor. He asked me if I would do it, or he didn't ask me if I'd do it, to be honest. He texted me like, where would I suggest him to take it and stuff, and I said, just bring it and I'll just do it. And then when Shauna heard I was doing it, she's like, I'm trying to get Sharpen My Axe back on. This would be a great way to do it. And I'm like, all right. And I go, let's do it. So thank you to Dave for letting us see his guitar. Thank you, Grumpy Mike, for the thank you on that. And I'm glad you did it too. It's a really cool thing. So there you go. I don't know how to say this name, so I'm just going to say the question. It says, hey, Phil, here's some beer money for the weekend, and I have a question. Okay, how do you go about removing bridge screws when the head broke off? It's a 4-screw bridge for a Telecaster. Oh, I'm thinking the headstock broke off. What does it have to do with the bridge? The bridge, I get it. The head of the screw broke off. You can drill them out. You can use a tap to tap them out. There's a tap it. There's a set. I'm not even sure if I'm saying it right. Isn't that funny? Let me look it up. It is a carbon steel tap set. That's what I have. I have a bunch of them that I bought a long time ago. It's in my mind, it's such a mechanics tool, and for doing that stuff. I very rarely do deal with broken screw heads in guitars. I mean, it's becoming more so because the cheap metal they're using, they strip out or they break off. But you would use it's a drill set that has a tap, and you can do it out that way, or you can drill it out. Both those work. And basically what you do is you're just trying to get it to come back out a little bit, and then you get some vice grips on it, and then I just take it out, manually. But yeah, the tap and die set would be the way to go. And, it's one of those things you can just look up online and see what size you need. I bought mine so long ago. One of the things, somebody said, Steve, thank you. Steve is like Harbor Freight. Yeah, Harbor Freight would be great for that. I don't think mine came from there, but it might have. So it's one of those things, like I said, it's just one of those things. I only knew, and the first time I ever had to do that as a guitar repair, it's funny. I knew what to do, but only because when I was in the Army, we had to use them sometimes to get out, bolts that snapped off, and we would do it. And I'd be like, oh yeah, that's what we used. And I just went, I think I probably went to Home Depot and bought a set, and it works. And yeah, that's what you're going to use. And like I said, it works, if that helps. Mr. S, thank you for the super sticker. Leo says, I can't give 10K, but 1,000 of us can give $10. You know, look, man, there's no way I understand what you're saying, but I'm not out 10K. I mean, I am in the theory of I'm saying no to Temu, but no one was going to give me 10K anyways, no one else. So it's not like there's another 10K I would get after that. It'd be one thing time, they would give me money but hey, it is what it is. And then Fast Freddy said, here for the Sharpen My Axe video. Thank you. I appreciate that stuff. Like I said, it's just nice. I appreciate you guys doing that. And you know what it is? Sometimes I really want you to know what your money's going towards, what I'm doing with it. I use any funds that I'm given like this, the super chats or the patron funds. It's all used for the infrastructure of the channel. So that allows me to keep the money I make on YouTube, which is nice because, sometimes it's in my experience, as you do better on these platforms, it gets harder, not easier. And then you have to make decisions that you don't want to make. I think, and it's not judging anybody for that. I still have to do them too. I still have to make decisions and go, okay, I'm going to do this thing because it gets, the video made, the sponsor, but man, it's just so much nicer when you don't have to think about that or do that. Jam Senti says, how do you price used guitars? How do I personally price them? It's not probably a good way. Back, when I had a store, we would price used guitars based on what the current market was selling for. So we would use eBay and Reverb. Both of those you can go into sold items, look at what recent ones had sold for, and then it gives you. And then you want the recent stuff because you want to know where the market is right now, not where it was a year ago or 6 months ago. You want to know where it is right now, and then you would price them accordingly. And so when you would take a guitar, buy a guitar, or trade a guitar, because we mostly did trade, you would go, okay, it looks like they're selling for $600. I want to make 20% to 30% on this. Used gear, you usually double your money. So it depends, it really, like, here's how it works. I made a comment the other week about sand to the beach. If you brought me something, I had 5 of them, I would be like, okay, I can sell it for $100. I'll give you 50. That's just how it's going to go. However, if it's something I knew I could flip really easy and it's fast and it's really desirable, I'd probably give you 80% or 70% of what I think I could sell it for because, it's going to be a faster flip. So I don't need the money so much to, I don't need more money because it's not going to sit that long. Now, how do I price what I'm going to sell? I basically price it at below what things are going for. Most of the stuff, you can see it on my Reverb account all the time. Most of my stuff is priced extremely fair on the lower end. Patrons get a super discount first if they're interested in it, because again, just as a support kind of thing. And then if they're not interested, which happens a lot, it goes on Reverb and I put it a little lower. And mostly it's just because I want rid of it. In my world now, most used gear, when I'm getting rid of it, it's just physically I need rid of it. I either want to churn the money back into something I'm doing with the channel, or I just physically, can't get to my restroom because there's just too many things in the way. So that's how I do it. But how I would do it, how I suggest you to do it, is to research what they're going for and then gauge your product based on that, and then put it in a fair price point. Okay, let's do Guitar of the Week. Well, I drink. Yeah, I thought I'd do Guitar of the Week. It's a little late, but we'll do Guitar of the Week. So, as you know, I do Guitar of the Week now. It's where I show you guys a guitar that I think you guys would be interested in, or a guitar that you're constantly asking about. This guitar is probably the second most asked about guitar on the channel, and it's never been technically on the channel as a standalone video, although I do have a video of one just like it. So let me go ahead and grab it because it's right next to me and share it with you. This is a Framus television. Ooh. With dual P90s. So what is a Framus television? Well, it is a very thin guitar that is hollow. So it is, I believe there's a center block, so it's semi-hollow. There's a center block up the center right here. This side is hollow. This side is hollow, which is why it sounds like that. And it has a beautiful stained blue flame top right there. And I should work on the thumbnail. Here, well, hold on. There's the thumbnail. No. Okay, and it has a beautiful flamed back. And then the center is mahogany. And you can see right here, you look at the neck, you can see the flamed maple right there. Look at how nice that is. So you can see where it's nice. Okay, so then you have a Tone Pro style bridge. You have a three-way switch, which is a three-way switch. You have volume and tone control and two Seymour Duncan P90s. That's what it came stock with. And it has a unfinished mahogany neck where you can actually feel the grain. Very cool. And then it has ratio tuning keys. And if you're not familiar with those, GraphTech ratio tuning keys is each tuning key is a different ratio so that they feel the same when you turn them. So not one's more dramatic than the other. Has a graphite nut, ebony fretboard with 22 medium jumbo nickel silver frets with ball ends. They're set in with the ball ends. And then, of course, it has an ebony truss rod right here. And it is a set neck, as you can see. And I believe the neck is 3 pieces. Yep, it's a 3-piece neck. I think. Is it? No, it's a 1-piece neck. Huh. Okay, and I probably should tell you I might be a little confused because I had 2 of these at one point. This is the master built one. So I had another one that was regular. Ralph currently owns that one. This is the master built one, which is an amazing instrument to every level. And this was just one of those guitars that I have to tell you is just freaking amazing. So let me go ahead and share a little bit more with you. Okay. And I always thought it was funny. Let me go ahead and switch to the guitar view. Aha, look at that. And we're running through my Fender Princeton. Okay, hold me. Okay, let me move that mic so you can hear it. And beautiful sounding instrument, beautiful playing instrument. Of course, it's a master-built, German-made guitar that has just, I mean, the neck and the wood, all the wood has been properly dried for many years. And of course, the P90s, staying with the neck pickup. Let's give it a playthrough and let's see what you can hear. Okay, so then you have the middle position. And of course the bridge. Okay, so today I'm going to show you, I'm going to use my boost pedal through my OD11 with a little delay. Okay, and so I run the overdrive just light and then I put a boost in front of it. We're going to start with the neck pickup on this. Here's the overdrive sound. Okay, now let's go to the bridge. I'm going to turn off the delay. Here we go. Okay, so this guitar story is very simple. This is the most expensive guitar I own when it comes to retail price. So just be aware of that. It is way expensive. This is a guitar that is very rare. You don't see a lot of them. They don't make a lot of them. It is, even though famous German instruments are very expensive, this is on the high end of that spectrum because it's their master built grade instrument, and on par with my Warwick bass that I have. And this instrument was an accommodation instrument. In other words, I got it from famous Warwick, like I got my Warwick, working with them. And it's one of those things like, again, is this something I could have got without them? No. It's just not something that would have been available to me. And it's my wife Shauna's favorite guitar, without a doubt. Okay. And not only is it her favorite guitar that I own, she steals it all the time. She's rolling her eyes. I'm sure she's watching the show because she doesn't steal all the time. But she has stolen it many times. One time I went out of town for the weekend. I came back. She had taken it out of my office, and I have one in our family room where we watch TV. You have the couch and your TV. On one side of the TV, I have a wall hanger for guitar, and on the other side, I have a beautiful frame photograph of Eddie Van Halen that Larry DiMarzio took and had printed and gave to me as a gift. And so that's what I look at when I look at my TV. And she takes it all the time and she puts it in the front room so she can stare at it. And so, I don't like it there because next to that corner is a window, and I'm afraid that the sun will damage the finish because it's a satin finish, and I don't want to bleach out the blue. Blue finishes, if you don't know, blue finishes on guitars can be problematic. They can bleach out, they can green a little bit, they can fade to clear, so it's always scary. I really have a lot of faith in how well they did this guitar, but I also have a fear of this kind of finish. But she literally, this is, and I think the patrons once on a podcast asked her, and she said this is her absolute favorite guitar. But I'm not kidding. And this, if you wanted to ask her, but it's absolutely true. So you don't have to ask her. If I was to pass away, this would be the guitar she would keep. It's her favorite guitar. It's by far. It is very nice. So, somebody's going to want to know, how heavy is it? It is it's under 6 pounds. It's about a little less than 5.5 pounds. And it's top heavy. Let's go to Guitar View. It is top heavy on your lap because it is so light. See, it wants to dive. It is not top heavy with the strap because the horn is so long. Okay. But in your lap, there's a little bit of a nosedive to it. But the way your arm sits right here kind of positions it to hold. And it's just because, like I said, the headstock. You could probably solve that if they went to ultra-light tuning keys like Hipshot. That would definitely help that situation. But Framus really likes the Graphtec ratio tuners, and that's why they use them. So it is super light. In fact, it is so light. That's one of those things, if you guys probably understand this, hopefully you understand this. When somebody says, oh, it's 8 pounds or 9 pounds or 7 pounds, sure, it gives you a gauge of it. But you ever felt a guitar that was maybe heavy, if it's like 8.5 pounds, but it felt like 12, and you feel sometimes a guitar that's like 7 pounds, but it feels like 5. Some guitars can feel even lighter than they are, heavier than they are. This guitar feels like it's air. To the point where anyone who picks it up, I have to warn them at first. Like, hey, just so you know, it's going to feel really, really light. And even saying that, every single person without fail that picks this guitar up goes, wow. I mean, it feels like 3.5, 4 pounds tops, if that. So there you go. It's a very beautiful instrument. It's constantly on the, in the background, and people are constantly asking about it. And funny enough, I have a video of one like it, but it's not this one. And so that's why sometimes I thought, let's do it as the guitar of the week. and that way we can share. And that's the whole idea of doing guitar of the week, is share guitars that are interesting or maybe you guys are curious about. and it is an amazing guitar. It is so great. So a lot of you people are guessing the price. I see it all over the place. So you know, so here's what it is. Like I said, more importantly, again, I did not pay the price for this guitar. Like I said, just like my Warwick bass, that would be unobtainable logically for me if it wasn't for accommodation of discounts. What they call it artist pricing. I try to call it accommodation pricing because I don't like to think of myself as an artist. I'm just a dude on YouTube. But the price wise, somebody says Eston says, wow, less than I imagined, $4,100 plus. And here's, so I'm just curious. Somebody says $1 million. Somebody says a $10,000 nosedive. That's interesting. So here's what I can tell you about the television guitars. You can get the import version, I think, in the $1,000 to $1,200 range. You can get a German-made one in the $3,000 to $5,000 range, and then master built would start above that. This is, and then this is probably the most important thing. This is Framus's equivalent of a private stock. So if you want to know the price, just think of this. Imagine I pulled out a semi-hollow Paul Reed Smith private stock instrument. What would that cost? Framus is they call it master built. This is private stock. It's just like Fender master built versus custom shop. It's their highest tier. There is no tier higher than this guitar at Framus. So there you go. All right. Somebody says $1. Okay, let's go. Somebody says, please don't chip the headstock. Oh, yeah, it would kill me. I would it'd be so sad. So sad. Okay, let's go to the next question. What do we got? Let's refresh this. A good time to drink some water. John, thank you for the super chat. Seth says, hey, I have a vintage Schecter Strat with a left-handed neck, i.e. upside down. What is the easiest way to add side dots to the neck? Stickers. Sounds cheesy, but you can get really nice Lumenlay style stickers to stick on there. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it easy, that's the easiest way by far. If you don't want to do that, then the easiest way would be to do all the measurements correctly, measure everything out, and then drill out the pilot holes for all of them, and then insert plastic. I would get glow-in-the-dark plastic like Lumenlay, insert it in, and then it's going to be a little hard to blend out. I'm assuming the finish on the neck is a little glossy or a little finished. If it is, it's going to be a little tricky. That's why you really want to do that afterwards, but it can be done. You might have to do a thing where you might have to do some light sanding on it, and if you do that, you might have to do some then buffing to buff the sand marks out. But me personally, what I would do, I would get Lumenlay stickers, side dot stickers. I know famous professional rock stars who have Lumenlay style side dots on their guitars on stages. Absolutely. So nothing wrong with doing that. So there, I would think about that. Okay. Dave says Fluff has a recent video on side stickers. There you go. Check out Fluff's video because I've seen them before. Like I said, I probably have used them in the past once or twice, but not really. I tend not to look at the side dots. I don't know what I look at. I never thought about it. If I'm looking at the front, not looking at it all. Because I think at this point, I lucked out. Some players have issues with different inlays. Like no inlays on that one, bird inlays on that one, green dots on that one. Those weird dots that go, the dots that go like a swirly thing on the Valente. Block inlays on this one I'm pointing at. I don't notice or care. Funny you should say that. That's actually interesting enough. My custom shop Warwick bass, one of the things that makes it custom shop is I had them put dot inlays, and they usually don't put dot inlays on their basses. And they were like, but I had them do it. And so it was one of the upcharges on that bass. But it, I did it just because I thought it looked better. I didn't do it because I physically needed the dots. Okay. Somebody says I missed a super chat. Well, I haven't got through them all, so let's just keep going. Okay. Alex says, if you have a guitar set up as well as possible and the high strings choke out on the highest frets. So I'm assuming highest, we're going by ear, right? So we're talking about between the 12, probably even higher, let's say 14 to 22 or 24 frets. That's what I'm assuming. So I'm going to assume that because you said highest frets. So I'm assuming it's high by ear towards the body. What else can be done? This is on a Les Paul, but could be others. Well, here's the deal. If your frets are, if your strings are choking out and dying on your high frets, in other words, on the Les Paul between, let's say 14 and 22, you would raise the bridge. That's how you would alleviate that. And you would want to make sure that the neck, and then once you raise the bridge, how you would adjust that down is you would want to make sure if your neck has any relief, you can straighten out your neck a little bit more, and that would solve that problem. If you mean by highest frets, and it could be because some people just refer to them visually more than, audibly, and you're saying high frets meaning your first to fifth fret, first to fifth fret, if those notes are choking out, then you would need to relieve your truss rod a little bit. That's where that would do. Or it could be the nut needs to be recut. The slots are cut too deep. But I would bet, not looking at it, it's relief in the truss rod. Just a little bit of relief will kind of fix that problem. That's the two ways you start the process of figuring out where the problem is like I said, above the 12th fret, it's your bridge, and below the 5th fret to the 1st fret, it's the neck is where you would do the adjustments. And then if the neck is correct and adjusted correctly and everything feels good, then look at the nut. The nut being wrong tends to always be the open strings. So if for those of you who are like, no, it's the nut. The nut, though, that's how you solve if it's the nut or not. If you hit a string and the string is buzzing open, it's the nut, possibly. But if you hit a string open and it's fine, and then the 1st to 5th fret are bad, then it's not the nut. It's an overbow. The neck needs to be relieved. Needs some relief in the truss rod. So that's where you want to look at. I saw one. HK. Nope, that was last week. Okay, I thought I saw one I missed too. Hold on a second. I'm going to get back to it. Hold on a second. I did that one. Oh, maybe I didn't miss one. Huh. Okay. I'll come back. I'm going to come back and look at those again. Amanda sent me some cool questions I want to hit too, as well as we're moving along so we can button up. Hey, Amanda sent me from... says, what is your thoughts on the new Epiphone inspired by Gibson 355? Is this the best bang for buck in ES style guitar? So if you don't know what they're talking about Gibson just released a new run of inspired by Gibson Epiphones with basically the open book headstock, right? That's what I saw in the pictures. If it's slightly a variance of that, I know that they did one version was a variance of that. I looked at a screenshot, so I don't know if it was. So somebody put in the comments if it was is it an exact Gibson open book headstock, or is it a variant just more like the Gibson headstock? I want the Epiphone headstock to look like the Gibson headstock. One of the things I really like about Squire, I've said this before, is I like that they use the Fender headstock. I think that should be one and the same. Some people have a different opinion. Some people like the Epiphone headstock better. I understand. It's like you get trapped into what you did. So Epiphone being different than Gibson headstock for so many years, you're going to have people get upset if it goes to the Gibson headstock. Some people want the Gibson headstock because they want the Epiphone on stage to look like a Gibson, or they just want it to look like a Gibson because they like the headstock better, just like how the Squire looks like the Fender. Me, I'm of the camp I'd like the Epiphone headstocks to look just like the Gibson. That to me is one of my favorite Epiphones is like the V, because I like the headstock looks like the Gibson. I like that. I like that it looks like that. And Brian says it's a little shorter than the Gibson. Thank you, Brian. So, I guess the core of the question, what I think of that stuff, I like it. Epiphone is a little tough for me right now because their prices are just getting so expensive so fast. And I feel like I'm losing touch really quickly with this because it's not about where they're made. It's not about anything else. It's just literally like, okay. I felt this way when the Made in Mexico Fender Strats prices started skyrocketing very quickly, and it got weird the first time and it didn't get exact like this, but it got close, where you looked at a new Made in Mexico Fender and I'm like, I can buy a used Made in America one for that. And I really like Made in Mexico Fenders, and probably more so than the American ones. But, you think about it, like I said, it's your money and you want to spend it the way you want. I think it's hard for me to think like that. Like, in other words, it's hard for me to think of an Epiphone new being more expensive than I can buy a used Gibson. So it's a little weird that way. But when we're not talking about the money part of it, we're just talking about the guitar. I mean, I love where they're going with it. It's just expensive. And it seems like now this is not the best time to have more expensive stuff come out. But I would say, let me put it this way. Let me go here real quick because I want to pull it up. And I want to do two things real quick. Hold on a second. And this will kind of... Okay. All right. Okay. So let me kind of go into this. I'm pulling up the Epiphone stuff. Guys, thanks for giving me a second. And I'm hoping it's just going to come right up. And maybe it will, and maybe it won't. Collection, new collection. Is this the newest one? Accept. Oh, it doesn't come up. I saw the group picture of them. And when I type in inspired from a Gibson Epiphones, what's coming up is something else. I thought Guitar World did a thing on it. We can pull up theirs and see if they talked about it. Because I'm trying to remember where I saw it. I saw the picture. Yes, this is it. Okay, cool. All right, let's go here. Let me get rid of all this stuff. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. These guitars are here, and of course, they're not showing really the whole headstock. So there you go. There's a little bit of headstock. So there's your ES355 you were talking about. And of course, they have this beautiful SG and this pink acoustic. And then, of course, you have the Les Pauls and stuff. And one thing I will say about this is it really ties into the video I made this week with the new Paul Reed Smith S2s. And why it ties into this is I think it's smart. I think it's smart right now. Remember I talked about, a long time ago, I talked about the last recession and about how you needed more interesting things to get people to buy, not cheaper things. Cheaper is important because everybody's feeling a pinch, from the inflation. But these are all luxury goods, okay? And people spend money on luxury goods differently than necessities. And I know whenever I talk about this, it's going to fill the comment sections with, the price, everything's gone crazy, because it has. But please understand, this is a luxury good. This is a channel about guitars, which are luxury goods. We're talking about luxury goods. If you're watching this channel to learn about guitars, I understand that. But if you're watching this channel because we're talking about products that you're interested in, these are luxury products. And whether you're looking at a $100 Amazon guitar or you're looking at a $10,000 custom shop instrument, these are luxury goods. And right now, to get most people to spend luxury, you have to make them feel a certain way. You have to make them feel good. And yes, lowering the price can sometimes make them feel good, but also feel a little less apprehensive about purchasing. But my experience in the last recession, having to sell guitars during the recession and feed my kids with it, was what really brought the purchases in when the market gets a little hard and the competition goes up, is to make better products, to give them more value, because it's the feeling you're trying to incite. So obviously, Paul Reed Smith S2s adding in the core pickups, the real deal pickups, and making the S2s feel more premium, so that somebody who, because really what you're trying to do is you're not trying to get somebody who is like, I was thinking about getting an S2, because that's what I know a lot of you thought. Like somebody's thinking about getting an S2 And now they got real Paul Reed Smith core pickups in it. And for a couple $100 more, they're going to buy that. I don't think that's exactly what they're doing. I think what they're doing is they're trying to grab all the people who are thinking about buying a $4,000 or $5,000 Paul Reed Smith core to go, why not just buy this for $2,000? That is an easier person to convert into a sale. They were already maybe thinking $4,000, and now you're telling them for $2,000, and that you need them to rationalize this. Like, wow, I'm going to get the same sounds. I'm going to get a same finish. I don't really need all that fancy wood top stuff. I don't need the fancy things. I'll just get the more bare bones instrument, and it's a quality instrument. And I think Epiphone is probably doing a little bit of the same strategy, a little bit of saying, hey, plus, let's be honest, Jack Higginbotham deserves the respect, one, but also the accolade. He could be putting the pressure on Gibson to upgrade the Epiphones, because what he's done with Paul Reed Smith SE has set the industry standard for the new, more obtainable, because I noticed I'm not saying affordable, more obtainable instrument line, which is SE. The Paul Reed Smith SE guitar punches so far above its weight in not only its quality, because look, we can sit here and we can give accolades to Harley Benton, we can give accolades to there's all ER guitars. There are a ton of guitars that you can buy for $100 to $200, $300, $400 that are good guitars. We will all agree well, not all of us, but a lot of us agree they're good guitars. And do you need more? You don't. But we're talking about premium brand with better features. It's a better resale value, which makes people feel more comfortable about their purchase, their venture purchase. This is something I'll keep hitting on for probably years when people go, why do you guys always talk about resale value? And it's because every guitar purchase is a venture purchase. It means you're guessing you're going to like this. And again, it's not a necessity. It's a luxury. You know, if you're like, I need a hammer, and you go and look at hammers, you're going to look at, I'm only going to use it a couple times. I'm going to Harbor Freight. If you're like, I'm going to use this hammer for the rest of my life, you're going to go and buy maybe a better quality hammer. You know, but it's a tool and you're going to use it. A guitar is not, it is a tool. Like, musicians get upset when I say it's a luxury because they're like, well, it's my tools and I need it for my trade. I'm like, yes. But as someone who makes entertainment, we're a luxury trade. Every time a guitar player who gigs tries to talk to me like we're not in the same boat, we're in the same boat, dude. People, if times get tough, they are not watching YouTubers talk about guitars. Okay, and they're not going to the bars and watching music. I mean, we're luxury. I'm in the luxury world. I'm no different than a band playing on a cruise ship. You know, if people can't afford this stuff, no one's going to watch me talk about it. No one's going to watch you play it. And so they're going to have to work harder for these luxury purchases. And I see Paul Reed Smith really jumping on that quickly, you know, with the SEs. Think how fast the SE upgrades came right out of the pandemic, right after the boom. It was like, pow, we're ready. And I think Epiphone could be coincidence. They were thinking the same thing, possible. But it also could be reactionary. They could look at that and go, hey, we got to get on this. You know, are people going to buy Epiphones if, you know, they're far removed from a Gibson where the SEs are getting closer to the core PRSs? I think that sets a standard. We've seen this before. This isn't new to the industry. In the 80s, we saw the 80s metal guitar companies make everybody take notice. You know, their fretwork was better. Their guitars played a little better. You know, we got to up the standard. You know, somebody's always pushing the market for either price or for quality or something, or sometimes hopefully both. And you know, I wish I could tell you what's coming next, because I can't, but stuff's coming next that's going to be in that line too. More affordable, really cool stuff from some cool brands. But back to the Epiphone and the guitars. What's my thought on that 355? I think it's cool, man. I mean, you know, the Gibson guitars are expensive, just like the Paul Reed Smith Core guitars. They are some of the most expensive guitars you can get. I mean, if you're not going, you know, to small builders who are extremely, you know, that take that, you know, to the next level. But hold on, I'm just looking to see what you guys are talking about. PRS SEs, okay. All right. This is interesting. I like this. It kind of goes into the discussion. Defund. Oh no, funny. Okay, I got it. Yeah, okay, defund. I'm going to call him defund. You guys are going to read his sign up. It says, we're not a political channel. It says, Phil, do you think a time will come when we will strip 80s and 90s guitars to reuse their good wood to build new guitar with. Like I see so many cheap plywood guitars with nice dark rosewood fretboards. That repurposing, in other words, it's possible. What would have to happen is the same thing that's happened in the other industries that have done the same thing, whether it's repurposing construction supplies, is there would have to be a demand. They're already doing repurposed wood guitars where they're taking old barns and making guitars and stuff like that. So is this a thing where they take old guitars? This is a fun little let's pontificate for a second, shall we, kind of moment where we're like, yeah, is there a time where people will look back at old Squire guitars and literally, I've thought about this for years. Well, young luthiers buy up cheap Squires and then turn them into amazing, beautiful custom shop level graded Fender guitars. Maybe not put the Fender logo on them, maybe put some other logo, making a new subgenre of guitar. In other words, a subgenre of style of selling. In other words, you take, like I said, what if you took an Epiphone Les Paul? What if you took an Epiphone Les Paul, stripped it down, like one of the ones that that we revere, maybe a made in Korea one where we thought the woods were better and stuff. Strip that down to the wood, repaint the whole thing, new pickups, new hardware, and maybe change the headstock a little bit and then relabel it as a new brand and sell it to you for a premium because it's been reworked in every way as a beautiful instrument. The answer to that is the market will decide that. Do I think it's a good idea? Well, I think it's a great idea. Would I put my money into that idea right now? No, because I don't know, again, what we were talking about earlier about, consulting for someone who's trying to start a brand. I don't know if there's a customer for it. You're talking about a customer because to do that, it would cost no less. In fact, it would cost more. So what would have to happen is the expensive stuff would have to get so expensive that, it creates a market. That it's like anything else. It's like, okay, I'm not paying $25,000 for a Gibson Les Paul, but I'll pay this guy Mike in Minnesota to repurpose an Epiphone for $4,000. What I can tell you as someone who's worked on guitars more so than built guitars is it's more time consuming to refinish, redo a guitar than it is to build from scratch. The proof in that is, like I've said many times, look at manufacturers. They, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times they will start from scratch, then fix, because fixing sometimes can take longer than building. So, yeah, I love the idea, and if it could be done more practical, I think it's good. I think there's people for it. I think there's an interest in it. Obviously, I can see some of the comments right now. You guys are like, that's a really good idea. We should do that. Like somebody should do that. I think somebody should do that. And give it a try, and I think it can be done. But, it's going to be the market that decides it. It's going to be, I don't know, but repurposing is, as my guess in my lifespan, what I've seen in the world, repurposing is definitely a future thing. That's just the reality of anything, recycle, repurpose. It's going to be a thing. Whether it is or isn't is hard to say, but it will be a thing. Libertine 19, something. I'm saying the name. Okay, it says I missed a super chat. Let me hit that. Oh, there it is. Okay. It says truss rod cover screw head broke off. How can I extract the screw without damaging the finish on the headstock? I broke it flush with the surface. I don't know. Sadly enough, I don't know what kind of guitar you're talking about. Truss rod cover screw broke off. So I don't understand enough to know exactly. I'm thinking you're talking about the head. I thought I talked about this. Oh, I was talking about the same thing as the bridge. You're talking about the head of the screw that holds the truss rod cover on your guitar broke off, and now you got to get it out of there. Well, if there's something to bite onto, you can do it with some vice grips, but if not, you're going to have to use a tap and die set again. And I would definitely, in that area, earlier when we were talking about Telecaster bridge, I didn't really push it this hard, but I will push it with the headstock this hard. You're really going to have to tape everything off and protect the area so that you don't slip off and damage any part of the headstock. But that's what I would assume from what you're saying, what you're going to need to do. There you go. I'm going to have to invest in tap and die sets and link them. Thank you, Vimps. I thank you so much for the super chat. Let's do like one more, shall we? One more. Amanda sent a bunch, so I kind of want to hit. Okay, let's see. Okay, here's one. If I open it up. There it is. Okay, so I have one here. It says, Jordo's Toad Hole. Jesus, you guys come up with the craziest names. It's just, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like your name. I'm just like, sometimes, I got to read all this stuff. It's like a game when you're in your car and you're reading people's personalized license plates. Reading your guys' sign-ons is like trying to decipher personalized license plates. It just gets like, I don't know. Okay. So anyways, Jordo, he says, buying my first new electric in 20 years. Okay. So his first one in 20 years. Between an Epiphone Explorer and a Sire S7 Vintage, how's the QC on the Chinese Epiphone stuff? And are the Sires really as great as people say? All of the Sires I reviewed were fantastic. All of the Sires I have picked up and played have been fantastic. And so what I would say to you is you'd have to go into, this is the sad part, you have to go into my channel and look at the reviews and see when the last Sire review was, which is probably about 2 years ago. And then I don't have any reference for anything future. I have not touched a Sire since the last one. Up until that point, I was extremely impressed and I had nothing but good things to say. I've heard no negatives or positives since then, so I have no information, but I just don't know. Since then, I have put my hands on newer Epiphones and the fit and finish has been fantastic. I actually... I have, I like them. The only thing with Epiphone and Sire is that Epiphone, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Sire is, to me, a little bit more premium than Epiphone in the way that it's been fit and finished in the past. But, both are good. Here's the good news. I love this because, again, we've talked about this in the past. You're asking me between good and good. It's not like I'm saying stay away from one brand. That's what you really should pay attention to. It's not that I'm not praising one enough. It's that I'm not saying anything bad about either one. Reviewing them both, I would say, though, of all the Sires I've played and reviewed, I would say I would give them, on average, an 8.5. So I'm talking about all of them. So if I had to say my overall experience of all Sires, 8.5. Now, if I was to say the overall experience with Epiphones, obviously I've touched a lot more Epiphones, so it's not really fair. But I'm just talking about on the channel. Okay, because it's about the same. Maybe a few more Epiphones than Sire. I would say on average the Epiphones are about a 7. So that's what I would expect if you were going to purchase one, that the Sire will probably have a little better fit and finish on average than the Epiphone based on my experiences with those guitars. And that's, so do with that what you may. I mean, if that pushes you over the edge. What I would say is if you really want an Epiphone over a Sire, but you're worried about quality, that difference isn't enough to me that you should be worried by that Epiphone. But if the fit and finish is all you really care about and you just don't want any grief, I would definitely look towards those Sires. Because I think they just work a little harder. So, okay. Eddie Jr. says, Phil, I broke off the pickguard screw. Any thoughts? I would get a... I'm just kidding. It's kind of funny. All right. Okay. And then this is Reckon Dog? Reckon Dog says, hey, Phil, what do you think will happen with the PRS Core Guitars now that the S2 is much closer to it? Would they get new features or just some more be more obscure. I actually think some of the refinements in the core already happened. We saw them change to the plastic tuning keys. Obviously, everybody has tuning heads. I'm sorry, on the tuning keys, and making them more like a bird. As much as that sounds silly, saying it out loud, like, whoa, plastic tuning heads, heads on tuning keys is more premium. But in my experience, when you're talking about brands, and that's what Paul Reed Smith is, it's a brand. It's a high-end brand that brings in a customer that is wanting either the prestige of that brand. That's a factor why people buy PRSs. Look, they're called doctor lawyer guitars. And I don't think that's fair, because I think engineers make a lot of money too, and I think more engineers play guitar than doctors and lawyers, but I could be wrong. But my point is that Paul Reed Smith built a prestigious brand, a premium brand, and he wants to sell guitars in that premium brand. And so he's probably aware of something that we're all not aware of, which is he probably knows what really drives the purchasing of us more than we even do. And if I was gonna guess, I would say that owning a core PRS is more of a bragging right than it has a physical quality to it, because we know that because he doesn't make crappy SEs and he doesn't make crappy S2s. I mean, they're all really good, to the point where you're like, when people go, oh, my core is so much better than my SE, I'm like, it's better. Is it so much better? I don't know if so much better is something I can actually attest to. I think it's better. I agree with you. I'm not arguing. But so much better? I think I think aesthetic changes to the core, which is what I think he's done recently with the tuning key change and maybe some finish changes and stuff, is enough to push people into the core because they just want it. We've talked about how stupid we all are. Not all of you, me, how stupid I am to go want a binding on a Gibson Les Paul. The studio is fine, especially with a maple cap. It's really at that point with the same pickups as the same guitar, but to have the binding is a big deal. I don't think they're any different than Paul Reed Smith. I think Paul Reed Smith is going to be like, yeah, if you want the core, it's going to be a look so much so than it is the sound quality, because we know the pickups are going to be a big driver of the sound quality in those guitars. And of course, holding back the bridges and the old tuning keys, the what are they, the number 2s versus the 3s on the S2s is enough to make people go, I need more premium. There is that. So I think that might be enough. I think what S2 is really about is them answering the question to the problem we were all having with, which is what is really different about SE and S2? Because I have to tell you, one thing that was getting really tough as someone who makes content to explain to you without reading their ad copy, okay? And I'm so glad I don't do it because, like for instance, on my S2 video, Sweetwater has the specs on the Satin 24 wrong. They're saying it's a pattern regular neck. It's not. I measured it. It's pattern thin. So thank goodness. I usually go to Sweetwater for my specs, but theirs was wrong, and I learned that after I made the video because I trust my own tools. But here's my point. My point is that it was getting really hard making videos explaining the difference between SE and S2 without saying that one stupid thing that I hate saying, which is this one's made in Indonesia and this one's made in the USA. And if you buy the USA one, people in USA are happy, and if you buy the Indonesian one, people in Indonesia are happy. I mean, it gets really hard to qualify that as a reason for purchase, And I know some of you guys, mostly us, maybe us people like me in the US, that are old school, focus on that because we're Americans and we're like, America, all right? But remember, I talk to the internet, and the internet, like I said earlier, is the world. This group of people sitting here, 1,000 people plus, you're not 1,000 Americans, not even close. I bet you if I'm lucky, 65% of you are from America, maybe 70, which is a good amount, but not all. The truth is, not everybody has the same value points as us, okay? So because of that, it gets hard for me as a channel that's trying to be respected for taking the time to explain the actual differences in the guitar to just say, well, this one's made in one country and this one's made in another, and that's the value proposition difference. The SEs were making that tough because when somebody would ask me an honest question of what's really the difference in the quality of an SE versus an S2? And I'm like, well, they have different finishes. It's polyurethane versus nitrocellulose lacquer now that the SE or S2s have nitro. Pickups were the same, bridge was the same. The S2s have locking keys. But this is where it's tough. Somebody goes, well, why is it double? I'm like, I don't know. Labor? It's the American labor. It's double, right? It's more. It costs more to build it in the USA. That's true. And as a patriotic American, I'm like, yeah, pay that labor. Those are my people. Pay them, right? That's not a thing I can attest to quality. That's a thing I can attest to the value I find. I find value in supporting, like I said, I like to support my local restaurants more than the chain restaurants. I like to support my local work more than, work from on the other side of the country, much less outside the country. I mean, that's us. Everybody's going to be the same that way. You want, people in Italy want people in Italy to be working, right? People in America want people working in America. So, but that's not something I can qualify in a video as that's value in that aspect. But in a quality, when I'm A/Bing product quality, it's almost impossible to come up with an answer. So having S2 level up a little bit was a smart decision. And the reality is this: they upped the prices about $250 a guitar. That doesn't matter. Here's why it doesn't matter. $2,200, somebody's like, they were $2,000, 22, that's ridiculous. It's not really that. They were $2,000 and almost like $1,000 SE, and now they're $2,200 and they're leveled up from an SE. So is it double the quality of an SE? No. But it's more, 30% more. I don't know how to value it. I don't know how to put a percentage on it, but it's more valuable because it has more valuable pieces in it. Like I said, I think the finish, I like the nitro finish on it. But I mean, that's just a preference. I don't really like nitro finishes, but I like the finish that PRS is using on that. It feels really good in my hands, and I like it on my arm. I like the way it feels. So to answer your question, I think the level up the S2 was a perfect strategy that doesn't really require the core guitars to be leveled up next. And I told you guys, because of my relationships with certain companies, there's a good and bad thing. One of the bad things is when a company tells me, like, right now I'm working on my June videos. So, I mean, for a lot of companies. And so obviously there's stuff I know it's coming out in June and I can't talk about it. So, but one thing I will tell you is I can tell you what I'm not doing and what I'm not seeing. I know a bunch of stuff that's coming out with PRS in the future, and like, let's say through this next quarter, second quarter, and none of it is in the upgrades in the USA Guitars. And if anything, USA Guitars got their upgrade in January, this first quarter. If you saw, I did a review of the new 2408 Core. That was part of the new lineup. And so I think Core got its update, which was mostly in aesthetics. I think S2 got its update mostly in componentry, and sound quality. And then I know what's coming next in SE. It will be interesting, but SE's already got an upgrade too. So I think your decision is simple now. It's, do you want the core guitar, that premium guitar, or do you just want a Paul Reed Smith that sounds great? I have another video coming on S2s, by the way. I was going to release it this week, but the Sharpen My Axe video got a little combobulated, a little messed up, and that's how it came out. So it might go out tomorrow or by Sunday, but it'll be by Sunday. The new Paul Reed Smith, I have another S2 review and why it's special to me. So look for that video, and it may answer some of these questions even a little better than just me on the cuff on the podcast. We Tune to See is our last question. It says, I just bought an E2 Eclipse, which is an amazing guitar, with full thickness body and passive Duncans. Now I cringe every time I pick up my Gibson Les Paul. Yeah, you're the second person this week to tell me that exact same thing. I won't say who it is, but he might be listening to this show right now, and I'm talking about you, because he was talking about me on the phone with it this week, saying the same thing, that he just got an E2 Eclipse, and he's like, it blows his Gibson R7 away, and of course, come on. I look, it's a preference thing, for sure. I mean, there's just something vibing about Gibson Les Pauls, that there's a vibe, to it. I would never take that away from anybody. We talk about quality because I'm a repair guy, so it's like, I don't want to confuse people, and this is my last sign out, what I'll end on. I don't want to confuse people like a mechanic would confuse people on a car review. A mechanic, think of me like a mechanic for guitars. I'm going to talk about dependable, reliable, right? Price, value to price. Those things factor into me because that's my mindset. But just like probably any car-loving mechanic, I'm also going to go, but it's really cool. Gibson, to me, sells on the it's really cool factor. And right now, a couple of you going, I don't think it's cool. Well, then guess what? Then you probably don't like the guitars at all, because I think that's the only thing they really have to offer as a whole. But if you care about those other three things, dependability, and reliability, cost to value, then yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great guitars out there. And I definitely think the E2s, although my one complaint about E2, and I got to say it, is I wish they weren't called E2s. I just wish they would just call them ESPs and be done with it. To me, just make LTD, ESP Japan, ESP USA, and be done with it. Be done with it. I hate E2. I don't understand it. There are so many companies that don't do that. The idea, look, PRS S2, it's a Paul Reed Smith S2. It's a Paul Reed Smith Core. It's a Paul Reed Smith Private Stock. It's a Paul Reed Smith SE. Just ESP LTD, ESP Japan, ESP USA, and just call it a day. But, that's my only stupid complaint, and it's not based on anything other than I think it's because I have no problem admitting that I think guitars are cool, and sometimes I think I'm cool because I have a certain guitar. I was brainwashed. That's what happens when you grow up, like I said, with guitar magazines and MTV. And to me, paying $2,000 or $3,000 for an ESP E2, for that kind of money, I want to feel like I got the ESP. And the fact that they still hold the brand now to an even higher price point is just really tough for me to, value now that there's S2, now that Gibson's making, more affordable line Gibsons, or they continue to make those, and Fender makes more affordable Fenders. It just, I hate holding the brand out for such a high price. I get you don't get Gibson unless you have, $1,500. I get that you don't get Fender if you don't have at least $1,500. I get you don't get Paul Reed. Well, no, you get Paul Reed Smith at any price point. At $500, you get Paul Reed Smith on the layup. But you get the idea. I hate that the ESP is held back to such a high price point, and especially since, as much as I love the current ESP lineup and the quality is fantastic, I don't need, just like S2, I don't feel I need Core over S2. I don't feel I need ESP over the E2s. I think E2 is just the perfect amount of quality for me for that price point. I just want the ESP name. All right. That is the show. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me as always every week. I appreciate it so much. And on that note, now it's probably time to go play guitar. So go play guitar, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, enjoy your guitar playing. Have an amazing weekend. And
The Know Your Gear podcast.
Know your gear.